The stagecoach lurched violently as another wheel struck a rut in the desert trail. Catherine Winters gripped the worn leather seat, her knuckles white beneath her kid gloves. Through the dust-coated window, the Arizona Territory stretched endlessly, a brutal landscape of red rock and merciless sun that seemed to mock her silk traveling dress and carefully pinned hair. "Fort Bowie, 30 miles ahead," the driver shouted from above. 30 miles. 30 miles until she would meet General Marcus Thornton, the man her father had promised her to in exchange for forgiveness of gambling debts that had consumed their Boston estate. She had never seen the general's face, knew only that he was 47, a decorated cavalry officer, and in need of a civilized wife to manage his household at the fort. Before we continue with Catherine's journey, I want to ask you something important. Would you take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and leave a like on this video? Your support truly means everything to us and motivates us to bring you more quality stories like this one. I'd also love to know, where are you listening from today? Please share in the comments below. The crack of gunfire shattered her thoughts. The stagecoach jerked sideways as horses screamed in panic. Catherine was thrown against the door, her shoulder striking wood with brutal force. More gunshots, close, deafening. The coach tilted at a sickening angle. "Bandits!" someone yelled. Then the world turned upside down. Catherine's scream tore from her throat as the stagecoach rolled, wood splintering around her. She crashed against the ceiling, then the floor, her body a rag doll in the chaos. Something sharp sliced across her temple. The taste of blood filled her mouth. Finally, mercifully, everything stopped. Silence pressed against her ears like cotton. Through the ringing, she heard voices, rough, laughing, boots crunching on gravel, the metallic click of guns being cocked. "Check for valuables, and if there's any women worth taking, bring 'em to Pike." Terror flooded Catherine's veins with ice. She lay perfectly still among the wreckage, her breath shallow, her heart hammering so hard she was certain they'd hear it. Through a gap in the splintered wood, she could see bodies. The driver, the shotgun rider, both motionless in pools of dark red that stained the desert sand. A shadow fell across her hiding spot. Well, well. A man's face appeared in the gap, scarred, unshaven, eyes like a predator's. "What do we have here?" His hand shot through the opening, grabbing her wrist. Catherine screamed and fought, but he was impossibly strong, dragging her through the wreckage. Wood tore at her dress, ripped her sleeves. She emerged into blinding sunlight, her vision swimming with pain and fear. 3 men surrounded her. The one holding her wrist reeked of whiskey and sweat. Another, younger with a cruel mouth, circled her like she was livestock. "Real pretty," the young one said, reaching for her face. Catherine jerked back, her hand instinctively going to her throat, where her mother's gold locket rested, the only thing of value she still owned. "Please," she whispered, "please don't." "That's a fine piece." The scarred man's eyes fixed on the locket. "Hand it over. It's all I have left of my mother. Please, I'll give you anything else, but not—" He backhanded her. Catherine's head snapped to the side, her cheek exploding in pain. She tasted more blood. Rough hands grabbed the locket's chain, yanking it so hard it cut into her neck before breaking free. "No!" She lunged for it, but the young one caught her, his grip bruising her arms. "Pike's gonna want this one," he said, with a grin that made her stomach turn. "She'll fetch a good price across the border." "Let me go!" Catherine twisted in his grip, her terror giving her strength. "I'm promised to General Thornton at Fort Bowie. He'll hunt you down. He'll—" The scarred man laughed. "General's 30 miles away, sweetheart. Lot can happen in 30 miles. A low whistle cut through the air, sharp, deliberate. The men froze. The young one's grip on Catherine loosened slightly as all three turned toward a rocky outcropping 50 yards distant. Catherine followed their gaze and saw nothing but heat, shimmer, and stone. Then he appeared. One moment, the rocks were empty. The next, a man stood there, tall, powerfully built, his skin bronze in the desert sun. He wore buckskin leggings and a vest decorated with intricate beadwork. His long black hair bound with a red cloth. But what froze Catherine's breath in her chest were his eyes, dark, intense, fixed on her with an expression she couldn't read, and the rifle in his hands, aimed directly at the scarred man's head. "Apache," the scarred man breathed, his voice strangled with fear. "Release her." The warrior's voice was low, accented but clear. His English carried the cadence of someone who had learned it carefully, deliberately. "Now, there's 3 of us and 1 of you, Injun," the young one said. But Catherine heard the tremor beneath his bravado. The warrior's expression didn't change. "I have 7 more warriors in those rocks, each with a rifle aimed at 1 of you. Look closely." Catherine saw the bandit's eyes dart to the outcropping. She looked too, and this time she saw them, shadows among the stone, the glint of metal, the unmistakable outline of at least 4 more men positioned at perfect vantage points. The scarred man's gun hand twitched. "Don't." The warrior's voice cracked like a whip. "You'll be dead before you clear leather. All of you. Now release the woman and ride out. You have 10 seconds. And if we don't?" The scarred man tried to sound defiant, but Catherine felt him trembling. The warrior's rifle shifted slightly, a minute adjustment that made the scarred man flinch. "Then your blood feeds this earth. 9 seconds. The young one released Catherine so suddenly she stumbled. The 3 bandits backed toward their horses, hands raised, eyes never leaving the warrior. "This ain't over," the scarred man snarled as he mounted. "General Thornton's gonna hear about Apache so close to the road. He'll come for you. Let him come." The warrior's voice was stone. "Now ride. If I see you again, I won't offer mercy twice." They rode hard, disappearing into a cloud of dust and distance. Catherine stood alone in the sudden silence, her legs trembling so badly she could barely stand. The warrior lowered his rifle and started down from the rocks with a fluid grace that made him seem to float rather than climb. As he approached, she saw he was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 30, with sharp features and a scar along his jaw that somehow made him more striking rather than less. He stopped 10 feet away, his dark eyes sweeping over her with an assessment that felt thorough but not invasive. She was suddenly aware of how she must look. Dress torn, hair loose and tangled with blood from the cut on her temple, face already swelling from where she'd been struck. "You're hurt." It wasn't a question. "I'm alive." Catherine's voice shook. "Thanks to you. I... Thank you doesn't seem adequate. Are there others in the coach? The driver and guard. They didn't survive." Something flickered in his expression. Grief, perhaps, or anger carefully controlled. He approached the overturned stagecoach and checked the bodies, his movements respectful. Catherine watched as he closed their eyes and spoke words she didn't understand. A prayer, she thought, in his own tongue. When he returned to her, he held out something that glinted in the sunlight. Her mother's locket. One of them dropped it when they fled. Catherine took it with shaking hands, tears suddenly streaming down her face. From relief, from terror, from the overwhelming kindness of this gesture. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. This was my mother's. It's all I have left of her." Sentimental things have great power. He said it simply, as fact. "You should sit. You've had a shock." "I'm all right. I need to—" She looked around at the empty desert, at the broken stagecoach, at the bodies. Reality crashed over her like a wave. "I was going to Fort Bowie, to meet General Thornton. I'm supposed to marry him, but now— Fort Bowie is 30 miles. You won't make it on foot before dark. The desert kills at night. I have to try. I have nowhere else. My camp is 5 miles west. You'll rest there, eat, tend your wounds. Tomorrow I'll take you to the fort myself." Catherine looked at him, really looked. Despite the rifle, despite the clear warrior's bearing, there was no threat in his posture. In fact, she felt safer in this moment than she had since leaving Boston. "Why?" she asked. "Why help me? You don't know me." His dark eyes held hers, and she saw something there that made her breath catch. A depth of understanding that seemed to see straight through to her soul. "Because you were afraid," he said simply, "and you fought anyway. That takes courage. Courage should be respected, not abandoned to die in the desert." "I don't even know your name." "Dakota." He gestured to the west, where mountains rose purple against the horizon. "It means friend to everyone in my language." Though the soldiers at Fort Bowie would disagree, a hint of dark humor touched his expression. "They know me as the warrior who burned their supply depot last spring." Catherine's eyes widened. You're one of the Apache raiders the general writes about in his dispatches?" "My father showed me. The general called you savages, animals." "And what do you see?" Dakota's question was quiet, but it held weight. "When you look at me now, do you see an animal?" She looked at him, at the man who had saved her life, who had returned her mother's locket, who stood patiently waiting for her answer, with no anger in his eyes, despite what she'd just said. "No," she said finally. "I see a man who showed me more mercy in 5 minutes than my own father did in 23 years. Something shifted in Dakota's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. "Your father is not a good man." "No, he isn't." The admission felt like freedom. "He sold me to the general, like I was property, to pay his gambling debts." "Then you are not promised. You are traded. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Either way, I'm not mine. I belong to the general now." "No." Dakota's voice was firm. "You belong to yourself. That is what my people believe. A woman is not owned. She chooses." Catherine felt tears threaten again, but this time from something other than fear. How strange that this man, this Apache warrior who was supposed to be her enemy, understood her worth more clearly than anyone in her civilized Boston life ever had. "What if I choose to come to your camp?" she asked. "Just for tonight. Just to rest." "Then I'll keep you safe." He said it like an oath. "You have my word." Catherine took a deep breath and nodded. "Then I accept your help. Thank you, Dakota." He nodded once, then turned and gave another low whistle. The warriors in the rocks materialized. 5 men, not 7. She noted with a small smile at his bluff. They approached with quiet efficiency, and Dakota spoke to them rapidly in Apache. One of them brought forward 2 horses. Dakota turned back to Catherine. "Can you ride?" "Yes. I learned as a girl." "Good." But when she moved toward one of the horses, Her legs buckled. The shock was catching up to her, the terror finally allowed to break through her rigid control. Dakota caught her before she fell, his arms strong and steady. "Easy," he murmured. "You're safe now. I'm sorry. I thought I could. You've been very brave, but even warriors need time to recover from battle." He guided her to one of the horses and lifted her into the saddle with surprising gentleness. When she swayed, he mounted behind her, his arms circling her waist to hold her steady. "Lean back. Rest. I won't let you fall." Catherine was too exhausted to argue. She let herself lean against his chest, felt the solid warmth of him, the steady rhythm of his breathing. He smelled of sage and smoke and something else, something wild and clean that was nothing like the perfumed men of Boston or the whiskey-soaked bandits. "What about the bodies?" she asked as they started riding. "We can't just leave them." "My brothers will see to them. They'll be buried with respect, and their possessions sent to Fort Bowie with word of what happened." "Won't that put you in danger, letting the fort know you're nearby?" "We're always in danger from the soldiers." His voice was matter-of-fact. "That doesn't change whether they know where we are or not. But those men deserve proper burial. Death is death, regardless of whose side you fight on." Catherine closed her eyes, letting the horse's steady gait lull her. Behind her, Dakota rode in silence, his presence a strange comfort. She should be terrified, she knew. She was being taken to an Apache camp by a warrior who had admitted to attacking military supplies. Everything she'd been taught said she should be planning escape, should be praying for rescue. But all she felt was safe. The sun was setting when they reached the camp, a hidden canyon where water trickled from rocks and cottonwood trees provided blessed shade. There were perhaps 20 people, men, women, children. They looked up as Dakota rode in, curiosity clear on their faces. An older woman approached immediately, her weathered face breaking into a smile when she saw Catherine. She spoke rapidly in Apache, her tone concerned. "This is my mother, Nasha," Dakota said. "She asks if you're hurt." "Just bruised, and a cut on my head." Nasha reached up, her hands gentle as she examined Catherine's temple. She clucked her tongue and spoke again. "She says you'll come to her dwelling. She'll clean your wound and give you food and fresh clothes." Dakota helped Catherine down from the horse, steadying her when she stumbled. "You'll be safe here. No one will harm you. I believe you." And she did, which was perhaps the strangest part of all. Nasha took Catherine's arm with surprising strength and led her toward a shelter made of branches and hides. Inside, it was cool and dim, with woven blankets and clay pots arranged neatly. The older woman gestured for Catherine to sit, then brought water and clean cloth. As Nasha cleaned the cut on her temple with gentle efficiency, Catherine found herself relaxing for the first time in months, maybe years. The tight knot of fear and desperation she'd carried since her father's announcement began to loosen, just slightly. Dakota appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the dying light. "How is she?" Nasha answered in Apache, her tone satisfied. "She says you'll heal. The cut isn't deep." Dakota stepped inside, carrying a bundle of cloth. "These are clean. They'll be more comfortable than what you're wearing." Catherine looked down at her torn silk dress, now brown with dust and dark with bloodstains. "Thank you for everything. Rest tonight. Eat. Tomorrow we'll talk about Fort Bowie." He turned to leave, then paused. "Yes? You asked why I helped you. I didn't tell you the whole truth." His dark eyes met hers, I helped you because when you offered that locket, when you were willing to trade your last precious thing just to survive, I saw someone worth saving. Someone with the heart of a warrior, even if you don't know it yet." He left before she could respond, but his words echoed in the quiet space. Catherine touched the locket at her throat and felt something shift inside her chest, something that felt dangerously close to hope. Catherine woke to unfamiliar sounds, the crackle of fire, voices speaking in melodic tones she didn't understand, the laugh of a child somewhere nearby. For a moment, panic seized her. Then memory flooded back. The attack, Dakota, the Apache camp. She sat up slowly, her body stiff with bruises. Gray dawn light filtered through the shelter's opening. Someone had covered her with a soft blanket while she slept, and her torn dress had been replaced with a simple buckskin dress that fell to her ankles. It was surprisingly comfortable, far more practical than her Boston fashions. Catherine stepped outside and stopped, breath catching. The canyon was beautiful in the early light, walls of red stone glowing like embers, the cottonwoods rustling in a cool breeze. Women tended cooking fires while children played nearby. Men prepared weapons and horses. It was orderly, purposeful, nothing like the savage chaos the general's dispatches had described. "You slept well?" She turned to find Dakota approaching with 2 wooden bowls. He looked different in the morning light, less like a mysterious warrior and more like a man, though no less striking. His hair was unbound now, falling past his shoulders, and she noticed details she'd missed yesterday. The intelligence in his dark eyes, the strength in his hands, the way he moved with absolute confidence in his body. "Better than I have in months," she admitted. He offered her one of the bowls. "Stew, my mother's recipe. It'll help you heal." Catherine accepted it and took a tentative bite. The flavors exploded on her tongue. Rich meat, herbs, something slightly smoky. "This is incredible." Don't tell her that. Her pride is already insufferable. But Dakota's tone was fond. He settled on a rock nearby, eating his own breakfast. "How do you feel?" "Sore, confused." She met his eyes. "Grateful. You saved my life yesterday. Anyone would have done the same." "No, they wouldn't. Those men were going to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. But they didn't. Dakota's voice was firm. "You're safe. That's what matters." They ate in comfortable silence for a moment. Catherine found herself stealing glances at him, trying to reconcile everything she'd been taught about Apache savages with the reality of this man who had shown her nothing but kindness and respect. "Dakota," she began carefully, "yesterday you said you'd take me to Fort Bowie today. Were you serious? If that's what you want. What if—" She paused, uncertain how to voice the question forming in her mind. "What if I'm not sure what I want anymore?" He turned to look at her fully, his gaze searching. "Tell me about this general you're promised to." Catherine's hands tightened on the bowl. "I've never met him. My father arranged it by correspondence. The general needed a civilized wife to manage his household and entertain visiting officers. Father needed his gambling debts forgiven. I was the transaction that satisfied both needs. And you had no say? Women rarely do in my world." The bitterness in her voice surprised her. "We're raised to be ornaments and eventually mothers. Our value is measured in our ability to attract a suitable husband and bear his children. I thought—" She laughed without humor. "I actually thought I was lucky. 23 and unmarried. I was almost a spinster. When father told me about the general, I told myself it could be worse. Could it? The quiet question made Catherine look up sharply. Dakota's expression was neutral, but his eyes held something that looked like anger. Not at her, but for her. I don't know, she admitted. The general's letters were formal, correct. He outlined his expectations clearly. A well-run household, appropriate social graces, discretion. He mentioned he had been married before, that his first wife died of fever, that he had no children. He seemed, she struggled for the word, adequate. Adequate, Dakota repeated the word like it was foreign. This is what you were traveling across a desert to marry? Adequate? It's more than some women get. That doesn't make it acceptable. He set down his bowl and leaned forward, his intensity suddenly focused entirely on her. Catherine, listen to me. I've seen the soldiers at Fort Bowie. I've watched them, studied them. I know Marcus Thornton. Her heart skipped. You do? He leads the patrols that hunt my people. He's a skilled officer, I'll give him that. Tactical, ruthless when he needs to be. But I've also seen how he treats the Apache women the soldiers capture. How he looks at them, talks about them. Dakota's jaw tightened. He views people as possessions, tools to be used. You would not be his wife, Catherine. You would be another piece of property to display. How do you know that? You can't possibly. 2 months ago, we raided a supply wagon, found letters among the goods, personal correspondence the general had written, but never sent. One was to a friend back east. In it, he described the type of wife he needed. Refined enough to impress visiting dignitaries, but plain enough not to distract from my authority. Biddable, grateful for the position. Dakota's dark eyes bored into hers. Does that sound like a man who will see you, Catherine? Or just the function you serve? Catherine's stomach turned. She wanted to deny it, to say Dakota must be mistaken, but the description fit too well with the cold formality of the general's letters, the way he'd outlined expectations, but never once asked about her hopes or dreams. Even if that's true, she said quietly, what choice do I have? I have no money, no family who cares whether I live or die. Nowhere to go. At least at Fort Bowie, I'll have food and shelter. You trade yourself for survival? Isn't that what everyone does in one way or another? No. Dakota stood and paced a few steps, his frustration evident. My people, we believe every person has their own path. Women choose their husbands. They can leave if they're mistreated. They own their own possessions, make their own decisions. A woman's voice is equal to a man's in council. What you describe, this trading of women like horses, it's not civilization. It's barbarism dressed in silk. Catherine felt tears prick her eyes. That's a beautiful idea, but it's not my world. It could be. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Catherine's heart hammered. What are you saying? Dakota returned to sit facing her, his expression serious. Stay. Not forever, not unless you choose to, but stay here for a while. Learn what it means to make your own decisions. Then, if you still want to go to Fort Bowie, I'll take you myself and won't speak another word against it. You're asking me to live with you? Heat flooded her cheeks. That's not. People would assume. People assume many things, most of them wrong. His voice gentled. I'm offering you time, Catherine. Time to heal. Time to think about what you truly want, rather than what you've been told you should want. Nothing more than that. You'll stay with my mother. you'll be completely safe. I give you my word." "Why?" The question burst out. "Why do you care what happens to me? I'm nothing to you. A stranger. White. The enemy of your people. You're not my enemy. You're a woman who's been hurt by people who should have protected you, who's brave enough to survive, but has forgotten she's allowed to live." Dakota leaned forward, his voice intense. "When I saw you yesterday, saw you ready to fight even though you were terrified, I saw someone worth knowing, someone who deserves better than adequate. Is that so hard to believe?" Catherine stared at him, her carefully constructed worldview crumbling. This man, this Apache warrior who was supposed to be a savage, was offering her something no one in her civilized life ever had. Choice. Real choice, with no strings attached. "How long?" she whispered. "How long are you suggesting I stay?" "As long as you need. A week, a month, forever. It's your decision." "And if I stay, what would I do?" A small smile tugged at Dakota's mouth. "Learn, work, live. We all contribute here. There are no ornaments in an Apache camp. You'd help with cooking, gathering, tanning hides. Learn to shoot, to ride better, to track. Useful skills no matter where you end up." The thought of learning something practical, something useful, sent a thrill through Catherine. "I'd like that," she said slowly. "I've always hated being useless." "Then you'll stay?" Catherine took a deep breath. This was insane, reckless. Everything she'd been taught told her to refuse, to insist on being taken to Fort Bowie immediately, to fulfill the obligation her father had arranged. But her father had never cared about her happiness. The general certainly didn't. And this man, this stranger who had saved her life, was offering her something precious. Time to figure out who she was beyond what men expected her to be. "Yes," she said, feeling simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. "I'll stay. For a little while, at least." Dakota's smile was like sunrise. "Good. Then we should start your lessons today. Can't have you completely useless forever." The teasing note in his voice surprised a laugh from her. "I'll have you know I'm very accomplished. I can embroider, play piano, and make polite conversation in French. Crucial survival skills in the desert." "You're mocking me." "Little bit." His eyes sparkled with humor. "But I'm also serious about training. The desert is beautiful, but deadly. If you're going to stay, even temporarily, you need to know how to survive it." "What do we start with?" "First lesson, never drink all your water at once, even if you're thirsty." He stood and offered his hand. "Come, I'll show you the canyon. Teach you what plants are safe, where the water sources are." Catherine took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. As he pulled her to her feet, she was suddenly aware of how close they were standing, of the warmth radiating from his body, of the way his eyes seemed to see straight through her careful masks to the frightened, hopeful woman beneath. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me this choice. Thank yourself for being brave enough to take it." Dakota released her hand, but the warmth lingered. "Now come, daylight's wasting, and you have much to learn." 3 weeks passed like water through fingers, each day distinct, yet flowing into the next, in a rhythm Catherine had never known. Her hands, once soft and useless, developed calluses from working hides, carrying water, gathering roots and herbs. Her skin bronzed under the desert sun, despite Nasha's insistence that she wear a wide-brimmed hat. Her body, always slender from fashionable tight-lacing, grew stronger from the constant physical work. But the changes went deeper than physical. No, Dakota's patient voice came from behind her. You're gripping too tight. The rifle becomes part of you. Treat it like your arm, not a foreign object. Catherine adjusted her hold on the weapon, her arms aching from holding it steady. They were in a small side canyon where Dakota had set up targets. Pieces of wood propped against rocks at varying distances. Better. His hands covered hers, adjusting her position slightly. Catherine tried to ignore the warmth of his touch, the way her heart rate picked up whenever he was close. Now breathe. Find the space between heartbeats. That's when you fire. She had been trying to hit targets for 2 weeks now, with minimal success. Her shots went wide, struck rock instead of wood, or missed entirely. It was frustrating beyond measure. I can't do this, she said, lowering the rifle. I'm hopeless. You're learning. There's a difference. I've wasted all your ammunition. Ammunition can be replaced. Your life cannot. Dakota moved to stand beside her, his voice firm. The soldiers patrol close now. If you're found here, they'll take you. If you resist, they might hurt you. You need to be able to defend yourself. Because you won't always be there to save me. Something flickered across his face, an emotion she couldn't quite read. Because you deserve to save yourself. Catherine raised the rifle again, settling it against her shoulder the way he'd taught her. She focused on the nearest target, let her breathing slow, felt for that quiet space between heartbeats. She fired. The rifle kicked back hard enough to bruise her shoulder. But the target, a piece of wood 20 yards distant, split in half. I did it! Catherine's whoop of triumph echoed off the canyon walls. She turned to Dakota, grinning with pure joy. Did you see? I actually hit it! His answering smile was brilliant. You did, and now you know you can. On impulse, Catherine threw her arms around him in a hug. She felt him stiffen in surprise. Then his arms came around her hesitantly, carefully, as if she were something precious that might break. They stood like that for a long moment, longer than was proper, longer than was safe. Catherine became aware of the solid warmth of his chest, the way his heart beat strong and steady against her ear, the scent of sage and smoke that clung to his skin. She pulled back abruptly, her cheeks flaming. I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. It's all right. But Dakota's voice was rougher than usual. He stepped back, putting careful distance between them. You should be proud. That was excellent shooting for someone who never held a rifle a month ago. The formal tones stung more than Catherine wanted to admit. Thank you for teaching me. It's my pleasure to... He stopped, seemed to war with himself, then said quietly, Catherine, there's something we need to discuss. Her stomach dropped. What? A patrol passed within 5 miles of camp yesterday. They're getting closer. My scouts say they're specifically looking for Apache, for me and my warriors. But they're also searching for something else. What? A missing woman. White, early 20s, brown hair. Disappeared from a stagecoach attack 3 weeks ago. Dakota's dark eyes were serious. General Thornton has put a reward out for information leading to your recovery. $100. Significant money for this territory. Catherine's brief joy evaporated. He's looking for me. Yes, and when he finds you, and he will eventually, he'll take you to Fort Bowie. To marry him, the words felt like ash in her mouth. 3 weeks ago, she'd been resigned to that fate. Now, after experiencing what it felt like to make her own choices, to work and learn and grow strong, the thought of being reduced to an ornament in the general's house felt like death. If that's what you want, Dakota said carefully. I promised I'd take you to him if you chose. That promise stands. What if I don't choose that? The words burst out before Catherine can stop them. What if I want to stay here, she caught herself, with the tribe? The soldiers will keep looking. Eventually they'll find you, or someone will turn you in for the reward. You'd be in constant danger. He paused. And there's another complication. What? My people are preparing to move. Winter's coming, and we always travel to our winter grounds in the mountains. It's a hard journey, dangerous even for those raised to it. You'd be expected to keep pace, to work as hard as everyone else. No special treatment because you're new or white. I can do it. Catherine lifted her chin. I'm not the same useless woman I was 3 weeks ago. You've taught me that. I know you're capable. Dakota's voice was soft. But Catherine, you need to understand what you'd be choosing. Living with us means accepting danger. The army hunts my people. Other tribes view us with suspicion. White settlers hate us. Every day is survival. That's very different from the safety of Fort Bowie. Safety? Catherine laughed bitterly. Is it safety to marry a man who views me as property? To live my life as an ornament, never making my own choices? That's not safety, Dakota. That's a prison with better furniture. Then what do you want? The question was direct, intense. Not what your father wants, or the general, or what society expects. What does Catherine want? She looked at him, at this man who had saved her, taught her, made her feel like she mattered beyond what function she could serve. Who looked at her with respect in his eyes instead of assessment. Who made her heart race and her stomach flutter in ways that had nothing to do with fear. She took a breath. I want to stay. I want to go with the tribe to winter grounds. I want to keep learning, keep growing stronger. She stopped, unable to voice the rest. I want you, her heart whispered. I want to wake up every morning and see your face. I want to learn everything about you. I want to know if your lips taste as good as I imagine when I watch you speak. Catherine, Dakota's voice was gentle. You want what? To be free, she finished. The words inadequate, but the only safe ones. For the first time in my life, I feel free here. I can't give that up to be someone's proper wife and hostess. Dakota was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching her face. Finally, he nodded. Then you'll come with us. But we need to discuss something first. What? If you're found by the soldiers, you'll tell them I kidnapped you, that I forced you to stay, held you prisoner. You'll say whatever you need to say to protect yourself. I won't lie about you. Yes, you will. His voice was firm. Because I'm already hunted. Another charge won't matter for me. But if they think you stayed willingly, they'll call you a traitor. You'll be shunned by white society, maybe even jailed. I won't have that on my conscience. That's not fair to you. Life isn't fair. A shadow crossed his face. But we can choose how we face that unfairness. Let me protect you this way, Catherine. Let me give you an escape if you need one. Looking at him, at the strength in his bearing, the fierce protectiveness in his eyes, Catherine felt something crack open in her chest. This man barely knew her, yet he was willing to take blame to keep her safe. How had she ever fought people like him or savages? All right, she agreed quietly. If it comes to that, I'll do as you say. Good. Dakota's expression eased slightly. Now we should head back. My mother will worry if we're gone too long, and you have evening chores. More hide tanning? Catherine groaned. My hands are going to be permanently stained. build character. But there was warmth in his voice, almost affection. They walked back to camp in comfortable silence, the desert around them painted gold by the setting sun. Catherine found herself stealing glances at Dakota, at the way sunlight caught in his dark hair, the strength evident in every movement, the quiet confidence that seemed as natural as breathing. When had he become so beautiful to her? When had his presence shifted from comforting to essential? The thought terrified her. She was falling in love with him. Maybe it'd been since that first moment when he'd returned her mother's locket and looked at her like she was a person worth saving. Every day since had only deepened it. Every patient lesson, every moment of respect, every time he smiled at her progress or challenged her to push harder. But she couldn't tell him. He'd offered her friendship, protection, a place in his tribe. Anything more would be presumptuous. He'd never indicated he saw her as anything beyond someone in need of help. Even if sometimes, like today when they'd hugged, she thought she felt something more in the way he held her, in the way his breath caught, in the care with which he kept distance between them. Maybe she was imagining it, projecting her own feelings onto his kindness. Catherine, she realized she'd stopped walking, lost in thought. Dakota had turned back, concern on his face. Sorry, just thinking. About you. About how I'm falling in love with you, and have no idea if you could ever feel the same. About how terrifying and wonderful that is. About winter, she lied. I've never seen snow. Then you're in for a wonder. His smile was soft. The mountains in winter are beautiful. Cold, but beautiful. I'm looking forward to it. Just wait until you have to help build winter shelters in freezing wind. You might change your mind. I won't. She said it with certainty. Whatever comes, I won't change my mind about staying. Dakota held her gaze for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in his dark eyes. Then he nodded and turned back toward camp. Good, because we move in 3 days. You'll need to prepare. Catherine followed, her heart both light and heavy. She was staying. She would go with them to the winter grounds, would continue learning and growing strong, would be near Dakota for months more. But she would have to guard her heart carefully, because loving him when he couldn't love her back would break her more surely than any general's cold marriage ever could. The tribe moved like water through the desert, silent, efficient, leaving almost no trace. Catherine struggled to keep pace the first day, her legs burning as she walked alongside Nasha's horse, carrying a heavy pack of supplies. But she didn't complain, wouldn't give anyone reason to doubt her place here. Dakota rode up and down the column on his painted horse, keeping watch, organizing scouts. He barely looked at Catherine, and she told herself it didn't hurt. He had responsibilities. She couldn't expect his constant attention. Her hands moved automatically now, comfortable with tasks that had seemed impossible a month ago. You work well. Nasha's English was limited, but improving. She smiled at Catherine. Strong now. Good. Thank you for teaching me. You good for my son. Nasha's eyes twinkled with knowing. Make him smile. He not smile much since Ayana died. Catherine's hands stilled. Ayana? His promised wife. 3 years passed, soldiers attacked while she gathered plants. They shot her. Nasha's face creased with old grief. Dakota find her dying, hold her until she passed. He swear no more love, too much pain. Catherine's heart cracked. I didn't know. He never said. He not speak of her, but he look at you different. Nasha patted Catherine's hand. Maybe he ready to live again. Maybe you teach him, like he teach you. Before Catherine could respond, shouting erupted from the camp's edge. Men grabbed weapons. Women gathered children. Catherine's blood ran cold as she recognized the sound of hoofbeats. Multiple horses approaching fast. Soldiers, someone yelled. Dakota appeared, rifle in hand. His eyes found Catherine immediately. Get behind the rocks, now. I can help. Now, Catherine. She ran, Nasha beside her, ducking behind a large boulder. Through a gap, she watched Dakota position his warriors defensively. Her heart hammered as a dozen cavalry soldiers emerged from the growing darkness, led by an officer on a gray horse. General Marcus Thornton. Even in the dimness, Catherine recognized him from the daguerreotype he'd sent. Older than she'd expected, with iron gray hair and a hard face. He sat his horse like a man used to command, his uniform immaculate despite the dust. "Apache," his voice boomed. "I'm General Marcus Thornton of Fort Bowie. I've come for the woman you're holding captive." Dakota stepped forward, his rifle held loosely but ready. "What woman?" "Don't play games, warrior." Catherine Winters, white, early 20s. She was taken from a stagecoach 3 weeks ago. I know she's here. And how would you know that? Scout reported smoke from this direction. Only Apaches would be foolish enough to camp so close to the fort. The general's eyes swept the camp. Send her out, and we'll leave peacefully. Keep her, and I'll consider it an act of war. Catherine's breath caught. She started to stand, to end this before anyone got hurt. But Nasha grabbed her arm. "Wait," the older woman whispered. "Watch my son." Dakota's voice was cold as stone. "If I had a white captive, what makes you think I'd surrender her for your threats?" Because even savages understand overwhelming force. The general gestured, and his soldiers raised their rifles. "I have 30 more men surrounding this canyon. You're outnumbered, outgunned. Give her back, and no one dies today." Interesting. Dakota's tone suggested he didn't believe the bluff. And if this woman, assuming she exists, doesn't want to return, she's not in a position to choose. She's my betrothed, stolen by raiding Apache. It's my duty to rescue her. Your betrothed. Dakota's laugh was dark. "Tell me, General, if you care so much for her welfare, why didn't you escort her yourself? Why let her travel through hostile territory with minimal protection? I had duties. You had priorities, and she wasn't one." Dakota took a step forward, and Catherine saw several soldiers tense. A man who truly values a woman doesn't send her into danger. He faces it with her. "I don't need lessons on honor from a—" The word he used made Catherine's blood boil. She started to stand again, but Dakota's voice cut through the tension. "That woman you're looking for, assuming she's here, assuming she survived the attack that killed 2 men under your army's protection." Dakota's words were precise, cutting. "What makes you think she'd want to return to a man who views her as property, who arranged for her like she was livestock?" "How dare you?" "I dare because I've seen what white civilization does to women. How you trade them, use them, discard them." Dakota's voice rose. "You speak of rescue, but I wonder, are you here to save her or to reclaim property you consider yours?" The general's face darkened. "You're holding her hostage. Maybe I'm giving her a choice. Apache don't give choices. You take, you kill, you destroy." The general's hand moved to his sidearm. "Last chance. Return Catherine Winters now, or I'll burn this camp and everyone in it. Catherine couldn't stay silent anymore. Couldn't let people die for her. She stood, stepping from behind the boulder before anyone could stop her. I'm here. Every head turned. The general's eyes locked on her, widening as he took in her buckskin dress, her bronze skin, her unbound hair. Catherine? His voice was disbelieving. My God, what have they done to you? She walked forward, head high, heart pounding. They saved my life, fed me, clothed me, taught me, treated me with more respect than anyone in Boston ever did. You're not thinking clearly. You've been traumatized. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in my life. She stopped beside Dakota. And the rightness of that position, standing with him instead of retreating to the general, felt like truth. I'm not your betrothed anymore. I'm releasing you from any obligation my father created. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is. I'm the only one who should be making it. Catherine's voice strengthened. I won't marry you, General Thornton. I won't return to Fort Bowie. I'm staying here of my own free will. You can't possibly. These are savages. These people have shown me more humanity in a month than I experienced in 23 years of civilization. Catherine felt Dakota tense beside her, but continued. I'm choosing to stay. That's my right. You have no rights here. You're a hostage suffering from... The general waved his hand dismissively. Some kind of mental affliction. I'm taking you back for your own good. No. Dakota's voice was quiet, but absolute. She's not yours to take. And she's yours? The general's sneer was ugly. What did you do, warrior? Force her? Break her until she said what you wanted? He didn't force anything. Catherine's shout echoed off the canyon walls. He gave me a choice. That's more than you ever did. This is ridiculous. The general turned to his men. Seize her. The soldiers started forward. Dakota's warriors raised their weapons. Catherine saw disaster coming, like an avalanche, inevitable, deadly. Stop! She stepped between the groups, arms spread wide. Please, stop! Catherine, move, Dakota said urgently. No, she looked at the general. You want me to come willingly? Fine. Give me one thing, one gesture that shows you see me as a person, not property. I'm offering you rescue. You're offering me a cage with nicer bars. Catherine's hands shook, but her voice held steady. Answer one question honestly. Just one. Then I'll consider returning. The general's jaw tightened. What question? In all your letters, all your careful descriptions of what you needed in a wife, did you ever once ask what I needed? What I wanted? What my dreams were? She held his gaze. Did you ever think of me as a person with my own hopes and fears? Or was I just a solution to your domestic requirements? The silence stretched. The general's face worked through several expressions: anger, discomfort, calculation. Finally he said, I offered you security, a home. That's more than most women. That's not an answer. Catherine's laugh was bitter. Thank you for proving my point. You're hysterical. She was promised to a general, Dakota said quietly. But the Apache warrior who saved her claimed her heart first. The words hung in the air. Catherine's breath stopped. She turned to stare at Dakota, her eyes wide with shock. He met her gaze, and in his dark eyes, she saw everything she'd been afraid to hope for: fear and courage and a love that matched her own. What? She whispered. I didn't want to say it, Dakota continued, still looking at her instead of the general. Thought it wasn't my place. Thought you deserved better than a warrior with enemies and no home but the desert. But I can't watch you sacrifice yourself for people who don't see your worth." His voice dropped. "You asked what I see when I look at you. I see everything, Catherine. Your strength, your courage, the way you laugh when you succeed at something new, the way you care for the children, the way you made my mother smile again. I see a woman worth loving. And he stopped, swallowed hard. I love you. Have for weeks. If you want to stay, it's not just as a member of the tribe. It's as mine, if you'll have me, as my wife." Catherine's world tilted. "You, what?" "I love you." Dakota said it simply, like fact. "I should have told you sooner, should have been braver. But I'm telling you now, because you deserve to know all your choices before you make them." "You love me," Catherine repeated, her heart hammering so hard she could barely breathe. "Me, not some idea of what I should be, but you, exactly as you are." Dakota smiled, and it was beautiful and terrifying. "Strong and brave and stubborn and kind. You don't have to love me back. That's not a condition. But you should know that if you stay, you'll be choosing a man who sees you, Catherine, all of you, and loves every piece." "This is absurd," the general sputtered. "Catherine, you can't seriously—" But Catherine wasn't listening. She was looking at Dakota, at this man who had saved her and taught her and loved her without asking for anything in return, who had given her the freedom to choose, even when that choice might break his heart. "I love you too," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I've been terrified to say it, because I thought you only saw me as someone who needed help. But I love you, the way you're patient when you teach, the way you protect your people, the way you look at me like I matter, the way you challenge me to be stronger. I love." Dakota kissed her. One moment they were standing apart, the next his hands were framing her face, and his mouth was on hers, and Catherine forgot how to breathe. The kiss was gentle and fierce at once, tasting of promise and possibility. She wound her arms around his neck, pressing closer, and felt his heartbeat thundering against hers. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she whispered, "Is that a yes to me having you?" "That's a yes to everything." His thumb traced her cheek. "Together?" "Together." Behind them, the general's voice cut through the moment. "This is outrageous. I'll report this. I'll have every soldier in the territory." "Report what you like," Dakota said, not taking his eyes from Catherine. "She's made her choice. Honor it, or don't. But we're done here." "I'm not." "Yes, you are." Catherine turned to face the general, her hand finding Dakota's and holding tight. "You were right about one thing. I'm not thinking like I used to. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in my life, and I'm choosing this, choosing him, choosing freedom over security, love over obligation." She lifted her chin. "I'm sorry if that wastes your time, but I'm not sorry for choosing myself." The general's face cycled through several shades of red. "You'll regret this. When you're starving in the desert, when you're being hunted by soldiers, when I'm waking up beside a man who loves me, when I'm using skills I've learned instead of embroidering pillows, when I'm making my own choices." Catherine smiled. "I'll take those risks over your safety any day." The general stared at her for a long moment, then turned his horse. "You're a fool, and when reality hits, don't expect me to rescue you again." "I never expected you to rescue me the first time," Catherine called to his retreating back. "That's the difference between us." They watched the soldiers ride away, disappearing into the darkness. Only when the hoofbeats faded completely did Catherine let herself sag against Dakota, her bravado crumbling. "I can't believe I just did that," she breathed. You were magnificent. Dakota's arms came around her, holding her steady. You were gods, Catherine. I thought my heart would stop when you stepped out. I couldn't let people die for me. And I couldn't let you go without telling you the truth. He pulled back enough to look at her, his dark eyes serious. But you understand what you've chosen? The general wasn't wrong about the dangers. Life with me, with us, it won't be easy. Easy is overrated. Catherine touched his face, marveling that she was allowed to. I'd rather have hard and real than easy and hollow. You're sure? Because once the tribe moves, once we go to winter grounds, I'm sure. She kissed him to prove it, soft and sweet. I've never been more sure of anything. Dakota's answering smile was like sunrise. Then we should tell my mother she's getting a daughter-in-law. Will she approve? She's been planning our wedding since the day I carried you into camp. He laughed at Catherine's shocked expression. She knew before I did. Mothers always do. They were married 3 days later, in a ceremony Catherine barely understood but felt deep in her bones. Nasha dressed her in a white buckskin dress decorated with blue beads. Precious, beautiful. Dakota wore traditional clothing, his hair braided with red cloth, looking like something out of a dream. The ceremony was conducted by the tribe's shaman in their language. Catherine understood only fragments, but when Dakota took her hands and spoke vows directly to her in English, she understood everything that mattered. I promise to protect you, honor you, and love you all my days, to see you always as you are, never as what I need you to be, to stand with you in hardship and joy, to keep you safe but never caged, to choose you every day, for all our days. Catherine's voice shook as she responded with words Nasha had taught her, promises to stand beside him, to share his burdens, to love him without reservation. When they kissed to seal the vows, the tribe erupted in celebration. There was food and dancing and songs in languages Catherine was learning. Children ran wild, elders told stories, and through it all, Dakota never let go of her hand. As night fell and stars blazed overhead, he led her to a shelter set apart from the others, their home. Inside, soft furs covered the ground. A small fire burned in the center, casting dancing shadows. Nervous? Dakota asked softly. Yes, Catherine took a breath. I don't know what to... We go slow. He cupped her face gently. Tell me if anything hurts, if you want to stop. This is about us, Catherine. About showing each other love. There's no right way except what feels right for us. She nodded, grateful beyond words for his patience. I trust you, and I treasure that trust. He kissed her softly, then deeper. Let me show you how much. What followed was gentle and awkward and beautiful. Dakota was patient as Catherine learned his body, generous as he learned hers. When she tensed at pain, he stilled immediately, whispering reassurance. When pleasure bloomed, he guided her through it with reverence. Go slow, she gasped at one point. It hurts. I'll die before I hurt you, he murmured against her skin, adjusting, waiting until she relaxed before continuing. They moved together in the firelight, two people learning a new language of touch and breath and heartbeat. And when they finally lay tangled together afterward, Catherine felt complete in a way she'd never imagined possible. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. I love you. Dakota's arms tightened around her. My brave, beautiful wife. Your wife. Catherine tested the word and smiled. I like the sound of that. Get used to it. I plan to say it often. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other and in promises. Outside, the desert night sang with coyotes and wind and ancient songs. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm, free, chosen, together. Epilogue, 2 years later. Catherine wiped sweat from her brow and adjusted the bundle on her back. Inside, her 6-month-old daughter, Ayanna, named for the woman Dakota had lost, slept peacefully despite the mountain trail's steepness. Tired? Dakota asked from ahead, his own pack heavy with supplies. Never. Catherine grinned at his skeptical look. All right, exhausted. But I'd rather be tired and free than comfortable and caged. That's my warrior wife. He waited for her to catch up, then stole a quick kiss. Only 2 more miles to the winter camp. Good. Ayanna will need to nurse soon, and my back is killing me. They crested a ridge, and Catherine caught her breath at the view. Snow-dusted mountains rolling to the horizon, pristine and wild. Somewhere far to the east, Fort Bowie still stood. General Thornton still commanded. The civilized world still turned. But here, Catherine had found something better than civilization. She'd found purpose, community, love that asked nothing except that she be herself. She'd found home. No regrets? Dakota asked, reading her expression. Catherine looked at him, her husband, her teacher, her love, at the sleeping daughter on her back, at the tribe moving steadily toward winter grounds. Every person essential, every voice heard. Not even for a second. He smiled and took her hand. Then let's go home, Catherine. Together. Always together. They walked on, 2 figures against the vast landscape. Behind them, the desert held their story. Ahead, the mountains promised new chapters. And between each heartbeat, love breathed like prayer, wild, free, chosen. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Catherine and Dakota's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.